Welcome back to Transfer News Live. I'm Statman Dave, bringing you the Scout Report, the best place for analysis on the biggest transfers in football. Despite a very impressive performance against title hopefuls Arsenal, Manchester United lost the match and still have areas they can improve. Carlos Baleba would have been the ideal midfield upgrade for Manchester United, but with a deal looking unlikely today, we're going to take a look at three alternatives to the Brighton man. Remember to subscribe to Transfer News Live if you are new, but anyway, let's get this party started. So Manchester United have got a bit of a conundrum to solve, a partner for Bruno Fernandes deep in midfield. Casemiro, of course, has probably played the best for Manchester United under Ruben Amorim in that role. A player that's very destructive off the ball, but also showed some really good passing against Arsenal, notably switches out to both the right and the left-hand sides for the wing-backs and Bryan Mbeumo. Before Manchester United, that profile of partner from Bruno is quite difficult because the Portuguese Magnifico is a roaming playmaker. He operates more like a number 8 than a number 6 when in these deeper positions. That being roaming deep and roaming high to get on the ball to try and make things happen not only in the final third but also higher up the pitch. I think one of the interesting things from the Arsenal game, Manchester United built with both of their centre-backs on the outside of the box. Matthias de Ligt moved into midfield and created a double pivot with Casemiro, which left Bruno Fernandes in almost a number 10 position when United were building, which caused Arsenal a lot of problems from a pressing perspective. But that's another area where Bruno Fernandes excels in zones where he can basically play in kind of a classic 4-2-3-1 position behind that front three for Man United. And that's an area where Bruno's got to be. So the player that United need to sign needs to be very comfortable in these kind of 6 positions. That means on the ball, they need to be super reliable when, for example, playing out from goalkeeper into feet. They need to be really good at bouncing the ball off, but also becoming a good option in possession higher up the pitch when United move to kind of their more progressive shape. That is, of course, when Man United move to their more attacking structure with the double pivot higher up the pitch. Obviously, United have played through that first third. And when looking at Bruno Fernandes in the attacking areas, he will move into an attacking midfield position in certain moves. He's got the license to roam, become one of this narrow front three behind the centre forward. Again, for Manchester United, that's the position where you want Bruno. Him dictating the play, him looking for not only shots on goal, but through balls and combination play with his teammates. And also, again, arriving late into the box, dropping a 1-2 to Matheus Cunha and attacking the penalty area and getting shots away. So this number 6 needs to be super mobile in terms of pressing, in terms of dropping back at the right moment. They really need to be the hub for Manchester United. That, of course, is one option. The other option for Bruno Fernandes and Manchester United is having him playing a little bit deeper. We speak about him as a roaming playmaker, but you think playmakers over the years, the likes of Pirlo or let's say Luka Modric, spent a lot of his start of his career being more of an attacking midfielder or a kind of really attacking 8 for Real Madrid, dropped a little bit deeper and became a deep line playmaker. In terms of partners there, imagine someone like Kobbie Mainoo coming in. So Bruno Fernandes is far more deep lying in a sense of he's a player that's very much getting on the ball, distributing the ball up the pitch. He is the link man between the defence and the attack. What that means for his partner is that 8 again needs to take that more attacking role, getting into these final third areas with Bruno sitting as a solo pivot. I think this could work for Manchester United in certain games when they're super dominant. Bruno Fernandes is this quarterback of the team with his partner being a little bit high. But I also think having a kind of double 6 relationship with Kobbie Mainoo and Bruno Fernandes sitting in there could also work for the Portuguese midfielder. Of course, the number 1 player that Manchester United should sign is Carlos Baleba. A player that could play both roles, got the quality to playing as a sole holding 6 as he does for, Brighton in the Premier League when they move to their attacking structure that's very close to Man United's structure. But not available this summer due to a very high price tag and Brighton wanting to sell him in 2026. Of course, another great option would be Adam Wharton. We all know his quality from a footballing perspective, and Man United would have a pure playmaking double pivot, which I'd absolutely love, Wharton and Bruno Fernandes. But again, probably too much money this window, considering United have spent £70 million on each Matheus Cunha, Bryan Mbeumo and Benjamin Sesko. The coffers don't last forever. So in terms of the first player I want to talk about in this role, let's go back to that kind of 4-3-3 structure, and that would be Elliot Anderson from Nottingham Forest. Elliot Anderson has massively improved over the last season and a half. I think number one, it comes down to him playing week in, week out, but also an evolution of a player that won the Euros with England's under-21s over the summer. In terms of how you describe Elliot Anderson, he is more in that kind of Kobbie Mainoo style of a box-to-box player. Very much kind of receiving the ball deep, moving up the pitch, supporting the play, making runs into the box. I really like him on the ball. He's a player that will follow it. For example, let's say Anderson's dropped a little bit deep to get on the ball, ahead of the opposition's first kind of line of pressure. What he tends to do in a sense of kind of moves the ball into wide areas, and then he'll move and get on his bike and look to receive back. That's kind of why I describe as box to box, because he does start in deep positions, and then he can finish certain moves in the final third. I think off the ball as well, he's absolutely fantastic. When it comes to tackling and pressing, he's really good. He's a player that will follow the ball. Let's say the opposition's number 6, he's put pressure on, he's shipped it to the 8. Anderson at some times will follow the ball and follow the press, which again can create natural overloads with teammates jumping in as well on the pressure, which I really like about Anderson. He kind of starts some of the pressing moves for Nottingham Forest, a team that does sit quite well in a low block or a mid block. When they're coming into pressing moves, it's not as kind of like high press design as you'd say Arsenal, Manchester City or Jurgen Klopp's Liverpool. It very much comes from player pressure, and then the jump comes in and you're really aggressive. And when looking at the statistics, it's quite interesting. Anderson is very much a volume tackler. He ranks in the top 2% when looking at tacklers versus dribblers. In terms of those tackles won, he ranks in the top 8%. But then we look at his completion rate or his tackle win rate versus those dribblers, it drops down to the bottom 42%, which means Anderson probably needs someone that's going to be a little bit more of a cover defender in certain moves. If he's jumping and pressing, needs his teammate to be in there and make the interception to allow him to get back into those positions to then play forward. I think as well, one of the things Anderson's very good at is he's a really good aerial defender, something that you wouldn't necessarily think about when you look at his profile, his size, but he's won 63% of his aerial duels, which ranks him in the top 8% of midfielders. So those long balls going up, Anderson's going to be a player to knock down, which I think is important in the midfield. Obviously, Casemiro takes that role at the moment with Bruno Fernandes, that kind of aerial defender. So having a player that can win tackles, that can play a box-to-box role, but also starting to get really involved in good possession moves. Take the first game of the season in the Premier League against Brentford. Anderson was directly involved in all 3 of the goals. Take the first one, Chris Wood's volley. Anderson is the player that whips the ball into the box. A dangerous ball to target Chris Wood and Murillo at the back post. Gets played up. Brentford don't deal with it very well. The ball drops down. And a little volley for Chris Wood into the back of the net. Nottingham Forest scored 17 goals from set pieces last season. Anderson took a lot of them. Corners, wide free kicks, central free kicks as well. But moving more to his kind of possession play, what I mentioned about Anderson, he is this kind of box-to-box player. He's a link player. He likes to get the ball, move it on, move into an attacking space. And we see that in this second goal, which I really like. And sometimes movement off the ball creates a goal, and that player doesn't really get any credit to it. We pick up the play with Forest kind of in their mid-third. Again, Anderson's constantly, when he plays as an 8, for Forest, he's a player that can receive possession. Constantly is that link into feet. As you can just see, Sangare, the number 6, is holding in midfield. Anderson's got more of a license to move box to box. As he receives, get himself face up, instantly plays forward. The thing I like about him is he's in a support position at the moment. He noticed that Nico Williams is in attacking area, that's the fullback, but also Callum Hudson-Odoi is holding the width on that side. So as the play gets into the final third, again, he's just backing up the play. He's in a good position, could instantly jump if Forest lose the ball and start applying that defensive pressure. But as the ball gets rotated back, he becomes once again a ball-playing option, receives really well and gets his head up, instantly firing the ball forward. From this position, you could expect a number 8 to hold his position, once again, be in a supporting role. What I like about this, though, is Anderson clears the space. He makes an attacking run into the box, which drags defenders away, consequently opening up space for Morgan Gibbs-White to do a really good turn and then cross with his weaker left foot for Daniel Odoi to head home. I really like that move off the ball. It's small, it's a small detail, but those fine details in football sometimes get missed. And you've got to give credit to Elliot Anderson's intelligence in that moment, open up the space for his teammate to put the ball in the box. And then finally, of course, this is the obvious one. The third goal of the game is assist. This is just fantastic. I love the punchiness of this pass. So we pick the play up with Forest defending. Anderson in that kind of left central midfield role. Again, he's allowed to be a little bit more aggressive than his partner Sangare, who's the defender in this situation. But the way not only that he kind of sits, he's in a really good position right now, just focusing on the ball. His concentration's good. He understands where that Brentford man in as well is going to be a good ball option. But as the pass is played, instantly he jumps on it. And this is the thing, obviously it's a loose ball, he could easily retain possession, but Chris Wood's already made a move. Anderson's seen it, instantly fires a pass, a daisy cutter through the defence for Wood to round the goalkeeper and score. Elliot Anderson has really come on as a footballer. I have loved his growth at Nottingham Forest. Credit to Nuno Espirito Santo and their coaching staff for kind of improving him, but also probably Lee Carsley and the England setup. Anderson's a player that's only going to get better and better. He reminds me of a Darren Fletcher, a player that consistently is going to improve through his career, that gets better each season, works on something small each season. And I think Anderson's going to have quality in terms of goals and assists this season. His defensive numbers are good. Maybe could be a little bit better with that tackle completion we looked at previously, but a player that could provide Bruno Fernandes good quality. Again, you'd see Bruno more in a 6 position, Anderson probably more as the 8, so maybe not that player United need right now, but a fantastic option that I'd love to have in the squad. So maybe not the top alternative to Baleba, but Premier League proven, ready to go. Right, so let's move further afield. Let's get out the Premier League and go to La Liga. Of course, we want some different options today, and that comes in the form of Lucien Agoume. Lucien Agoume is more of that 6, more of a destroyer, more of a player that kind of makes his money from making interceptions and winning tackles. That being said, he's still pretty decent on the ball. But what he'd add to Manchester United is real kind of might and gusto in those positions. He's a player that would allow Bruno to play. And that's something that Manchester United could look to do. Again, I think long-term for United, having 2 kind of more box-to-box or 2 6-years would work quite well. But currently with Bruno Fernandes being Manchester United's best player, with and without the ball, United really need to kind of build around that at the moment. And someone like Agoume would allow Bruno Fernandes to push forward and then could slot in as the number 6. I think the big thing here is the value is great. Less than 30 million euros for a player that would add some real quality to Manchester United's midfield. I think when you compare him to Ugarte and Casemiro, or maybe someone like Elliot Anderson as well, he's a player that's very good at making tackles versus dribblers. Got a really high tackle win rate, which helps Manchester United in the sense of, at times we see players break tackles. Last season on the carry, we saw over and over again, the opposition received the ball in the centre of the park and just cut through Man United's midfield with a carry. We saw it over and over again. Agoume's that type of player that's instantly going to step in and make that tackle at the right moment. I think in terms of his quality on the ball, very much kind of when he's a ball player, I think which would suit Manchester United, in terms of Bruno's more expansive passing range. But he's a player that's kind of good at bouncing off, firing it into, the players that kind of want to be the progressors, Eleni Yoro with his carrying, of course, and Amad Diallo maybe with his kind of passing, but he's a player that's kind of a bounce player, centre half into his feet, instantly going to play out. That's what you need for Amarin's system, especially with one of the 6s. And I just think when you look at this profile, we've seen it quite a lot in European football, this kind of young, aggressive French midfielder, and this is the latest guy on the block, so why should Manchester United make a move? Because it makes a lot of sense. The value's good. Again, United have spent loads of money, as we mentioned previously. And I also think on the ball, there's some quality there. Just want to take these 2 through balls from a Liga last season. This first one coming against Osasuna. Agoume is in quite a deep position, almost splitting the 2 centre halves. But he's going to move into an advanced area. He's not going to get picked up by any of the Osasuna players. What I like about this, not only is it very positive first touch, we talk about that a lot on this channel, kind of playing forward, being able to play that next pass in a positive manner and not taking a bad touch, which slows yourself down. You've got to take another touch before you get forward. Anyway, let's move on. The ball is very good. Agoume's got this kind of vision, spots the deep run, slide rule pass through the defence, and the centre forward or the attacking midfielder just fires wide. It's one instance of his good passing. But take this assist against Atletico Madrid. Again, Seville building their attack. Agoume in a central midfield position. Once again, a forward first touch, gets him into the final third. But the whip on this reminds me a little bit of Paul Pogba. That famous assist Pogba got, was it against Cameroon or was it... You know the one I mean, the real whip ball. This is fantastic from Agoume, freeing the centre forward in behind the defence. And it's just cleared off the line, so it doesn't fall down as an assist, but it is very much close an assist. So that's obviously the quality when he's got a bit of time and space on the ball, which I think it's something that maybe an Ugarte hasn't really got. It's kind of that vision to maybe find the threaded pass through the defence for one of the forwards to run onto. But I do think the big strength with Agoume is the defensive side of the game. And, one of the games last season where Agoume really shone was against a white team. That was Real Madrid. And this moment especially really stuck out for me. This is a moment that stood out against Real Madrid, one of the best attacking teams on the planet. What I like about this is the calmness from a defensive sense. to position himself well, read the play, and then make a move going forward. So we pick up the Real Madrid attacking down their kind of right-hand side. As the ball's played inside, Agoume's being very positionally disciplined here. Kylian Mbappe's dropped into his space, so he's kind of man-marking him at the moment. He's picking him up. As soon as Arda Güler takes his ball, there's a little bit of a problem. Not only is Kylian Mbappe super dangerous, but he's quite creative with his passing. And this is a problem because not only could he turn and shoot, but he could also slip in a teammate. But Agoume takes up quite a good position. He's close enough to jump if Kylian Mbappe makes that turn and tries to shoot, but he's also close enough to kind of read the play. As the ball gets shipped in, Kylian Mbappe takes a little touch, and Arda Güler's moved for the 1-2. And instead of being super rash and diving in and trying to win the ball back from Kylian Mbappe, he's got himself enough space there to step in at the right time, win a brilliant tackle, and then the composure to carry out of the defence, move through the challenges, and then simply retain possession. I love that play at defensive midfield. It's something that United don't have. They don't have a calm 6 at the moment. They've got very aggressive number 6s that will chase the ball, that will make the slide tackle. Agoume seems like a player where he just waits for the right moment, and we saw that there. And I think when we look at his statistics, it highlights that. Lucien Agoume made 4.73 tackles plus interceptions per 90 last season in La Liga, ranking him in the top 2% of midfielders in the division. On top of that, in terms of winning tackles, he won 67% of his tackles versus dribblers. Again, versus midfielders in the Liga, top 4% percentile. These are great statistics for a player that I really think is going to grow. He's going to be a top midfielder, still really young, got some really good raw materials of being a true destroyer for Man United, which is probably what Bruno Fernandes needs right now. So if Anderson is the number 8, Agoume is the number 6, what about someone that could play either role? What about Pape Sarr from Tottenham Hotspur? A player that I really like that's got a lot of raw potential. Again, Premier League proven, has done it in the league for a few years now, is aggressive, is tenacious in the tackle, got great height, has a great engine as well. Makes a lot of sense, right? Obviously, stopping the move would potentially be his contract till 2030, but Crystal Palace are just about to buy Eze. So when you look at it from a PSR perspective, do Spurs want to balance the books? Sarr has been playing attacking midfield under Thomas Frank in pre-season and at the end of the game against Burnley, first game of the season in the Premier League. It could potentially be a thing where United could test the waters because Pape Sarr has humongous potential. I like him in both positions, that being sitting deep, playing as that number 6, kind of getting on the ball in those deep areas, allowing Bruno Fernandes to be the more attacking player. He's a player that I kind of like in certain parts of the game. I think as well he's very good from a defensive sense. But in terms of that kind of like ability to look after the ball, his frame allows him to not only receive and bounce off, but also receive under pressure at his back, knowing that he could easily carry out of that pressure and get himself turned and then once again link with one of his teammates. He's a player that will be good in that build-up structure for Manchester United. Once again, allowing Bruno the freedom to attack. But also I think one of the things I really like about him as well is, let's say United have attacked down this kind of the right-hand side of their team and the ball's been kind of recovered. I really like Sarr in these aggressive moments when squeezing the opposition in their own defensive third. I think Sarr's got a great ability not only to kind of step in and intercept passes, but also jump on players. Be aggressive, be man-to-man when the situation opens up. And we saw that really well in the first game against Burnley. So we picked the play up after a Tottenham attack as Burnley looked to clear the ball. Pape Sarr's not even in shot right now, but that athletic ability is super important to Amarin's 2 6s. And we see him come out of shot right now, accelerate onto the ball, make the interception, and like we saw with Elliot Anderson at the start of this video, instantly fire a pass forward. Both of these actions were goal-creating actions, winning the ball and playing forward straight away. Of course, the assist for Elliot Anderson, and this goes down as a second assist. So the event before the assist. So straight away, Sarr jumps in, plays that forward pass, nice and punchy. Kudus goes on the outside, gets the ball into the box. Richarlison scores. But I really like that about Sarr. That ability to cover lots of distance quickly, jump in a pressing move, win the ball back. That'll work for Manchester United's pressing structure, especially on this right-hand side of the pitch. But not only that with Sarr, I think he's got a good athletic ability to attack as well as defend. And I think with Manchester United, as they evolve, again, we're going to see a lot of different structures. We mentioned with Agoume, it's more of a 6. for that midfield player. With Elliot Anderson, that's more of an 8 box-to-box player. Sarr could play both roles. He could drop deep and get involved in the build-up, but he could also move high. Let's say if Bruno's kind of dictating the play from a deep lying position, linking with Matheus Cunha, and maybe Cunha into Sesko. Sarr's a player that's got great athletic ability to get on to the end of these types of moves. And again, we saw that against Burnley. So we pick up the play with a Thomas Frank-esque pass from Tottenham Hotspur's defender. We don't see this under Ange Postecoglou. A long ball up to a 9. The ball gets played up, and we've got Pape Matar Sarr highlighted in a kind of right central midfield position. As Richarlison goes to compete for the ball, we can see Sarr attack the space. Richarlison does really well, a good turn, and flicks the ball off to Sarr. Sarr's ability on the carry at pace is fantastic in this move, drives through and then instantly feeds Brennan Johnson in behind the defence to fire home. But that quality in those moves could be really important to Manchester United in breaking certain blocks or breaking certain teams. We've seen them be far more direct already this season, playing to the likes of Cunha and Mbeumo versus Arsenal, but we'll tend to see more long passes with Benjamin Šeško into the team, which could allow players like Sarr that are very much box-to-box to attack that space, get on a little knockdown, and then maybe free up Bryan Mbeumo to get shots away. Again, I like the idea of Sarr. He covered more distance than any other Spurs player in the first game of the Premier League season. That athletic ability is needed for Bruno Fernandes' partner. But anyway, guys, that's 3 alternatives to Carlos Baleba for Manchester United. Elliot Anderson, we've got Pape Sarr, and of course Lucien Agoume. Let me know in the comments below which one you would sign. I've been Statman Dave on Transfer News Live. Subscribe if you're new. See you later.